Hello and welcome to Retro Reviews, my channel where I review my favorite retro video games of all time as well as some modern releases I have recently finished. Today I want to go over my top 15 PlayStation 4 games. This was extremely difficult for me because this is probably the most content-rich generation we've had probably since the PlayStation 2. Even the PlayStation 3 had a really good one, but combing through all the games like I had in my catalog, in my PlayStation Network account, and then going back through like a list on Metacritic, there are literal 300-400 games that are in like the 80 or above score. That's how fantastic this generation really was in terms of quality games. So this was extremely difficult. Add on top of that games that were like cross-platform with PlayStation 5. Did I start playing on the PlayStation 4 and then finish them on PlayStation 5? Where do I rank it? Because it's on both consoles. So this one was extremely difficult. So if there are some that are left out that I don't mention in my honorable mentions, they might be in my PlayStation 5 list that I'll be doing probably next week. So with that out of the way, let's get some honorable mentions with like Street Fighter 5, The Witcher 3, which definitely would have been on this list, but I haven't personally played it. I know I need to. I'm going to on the PlayStation 5. I just haven't got around to it yet, but I know it's one of the best games ever. I will get to it eventually. You've got Crash Bandicoot 4, which just about made my list because I really loved that game. If it hadn't been for those stupid time trials. We have like Dark Souls 3, Horizon Zero Dawn, which I'm not the biggest fan of, but I understand why it's so good. Dishonored 2, Arkham Knight. Despite my love for the Batman series, this is my least favorite in the franchise. Resident Evil 7, Rocket League. Grand Theft Auto 5 is another one that I just personally could never get into. As much as I love the older entries, I haven't been able to get into the newer ones. So that one definitely would have made my list as well. But those are my honorable mentions. I'm sure there's tons other, there's so many other ones too. So please let me know in the comment section down below your personal top 15. And let's get into the list with number 15, which is going to be Marvel's Spider-Man. Now, I really love the hero Spider-Man. I think he has one of the best rogues galleries in any comic book series ever. And Spider-Man is the best Spider-Man game since Spider-Man 2 on the GameCube and PlayStation 2. And I was so excited because Insomniac was making it, and they make the Ratchet & Clank games, and they do excellent work. And sure enough, they blew us all away with Spider-Man, giving us the best open world to swing around in. It's so much fun to play Spider-Man. I remember early on in the trailers, they debuted like QuickTime events, and people were worried about that because QuickTime events kind of suck. They did it very well, and for the most part, they don't just have QuickTime events. It's lots of fantastic combat, tons of gadgets, a huge world to explore. This game really just has it all, and it's so much fun. This one, I could have easily put Miles Morales here as well, because that one's a little more concise experience. Still a ton of fun, but for my money, I think Spider-Man goes a little bit further. Number 14 is going to be Uncharted 4. This is, in my opinion, probably the lowest ranked in the series for me, but that's not saying a whole lot because the Uncharted series has been very high quality for a very long time. I guess Uncharted 1's probably lower than this one, but I really did enjoy Uncharted 4. I think it's a little bit long. I think it could have benefited from being a little more concise, but the story that they tell is exceptional. I love Nathan Drake going to help his brother with all of his troubles and everything. I love the clashes and the tension that's being built the entire time through. I think the villain's very strong. I love the action set pieces. They're probably bigger than ever since they have this new updated like console to work with. Uncharted 4 was incredible. You could have easily put Uncharted Lost Legacy here as well. I haven't personally played that one. I need to get to that one as well. But I know that Uncharted 4 is still a fan favorite, and it's one of my favorites as well. Number 13 is going to be Dragon Ball FighterZ. Now, I really love fighting games. If you haven't seen Smash Saturday, I talk about Smash every single Saturday. I love the competitive side of it, and I love DBFZ. It's gone a bit crazy as of the last several patches. They have gone absolutely buck wild with this game. But when it launched in the first like second and third season, they really got into stride with patching the game and getting out all the BS that was in like season 1. They did a really good job of making probably the most fun experience a Dragon Ball game could be. And that's saying a lot because you have the Budokai games, you have the Tenkaichi series, we got Sparking Zero coming out I'm very, very, very excited about. They did a very good job of capturing the essence of every character that they put in this roster. And it is a beefy roster. Just the base roster alone has so many fan favorites. And then they added a ton of DLC to include characters from GT even, from the Tournament of Power. You've got different variations of Goku and Vegeta. It's really fantastic to see so much love being put into this game. I think Arc System Works did a phenomenal job. I would love to see them take a crack at the Smash Brothers series just to see what they would do if we'd have like a 3v3 2.5D fighter. I think that'd be hilarious. I think they really knocked it out of the park. And as a Dragon Ball fan, this was a huge game for me. Number 12 is going to be Psychonauts 2, the long-awaited sequel to one of the most criminally underrated games ever. I loved the original Psychonauts, and I was ecstatic that they were doing a second game. Even more so that they ended up on PlayStation after Microsoft purchased Double Fine in the middle of the making Psychonauts 2. Glad it still made it to PlayStation 4, because it is a joy to experience from start to finish. It feels so charming, just like the original, but with more updated like visuals. The style's a little more smooth and streamlined, while still retaining its quirkiness and weirdness, almost Tim Burton-esque thing that you definitely expect from Double Fine. You have the a much better control system as well. It doesn't feel like a game out of the PlayStation 2 era. It does in every way that counts, that works for people that really wanted like something that felt like Psychonauts 1, but it doesn't control like an old PlayStation 2 game, which is fantastic. It's everything that you would expect and even a little bit more. They tell a compelling story. The game is really fun from start to finish. And I think that they continue the story in a really great way. So it's going to be sitting here on my list here. Number 11 is going to be What Remains of Edith Finch. I don't typically love walking simulator games, but every now and again one will catch my attention that really speaks to me. And What Remains of Edith Finch really got me. I don't know if it was just the themes, the way they presented it, the visual style of everything. It just really works. They sold me on this world. They sold me on this family curse that's going on, and they really just made you care about all these characters that you don't actually meet in the game because they've already met their demise. You get to learn about this family. You get to become connected with Edith and that her family troubles that she's experiencing now. It's really cool to see. It's one of those games that's hard to describe. I have done a review on it if you want to go check it out after this video, but it's one of those games that playing through it really hits you at a really strong emotional level. This is one of those games that's ranked incredibly high on Metacritic because it's such a phenomenally compelling story, and the way that it unfolds is just really visually appealing as well. So it goes beyond the typical walking simulator tropes and delivers something truly special. It's something you pretty much have to experience yourself. Number 10 is going to be Ratchet and Clank. I already talked about Insomniac. I really love their games, and Ratchet and Clank was like breathed life back into the franchise for me. I loved the games way back in the day. I didn't have a PlayStation until the PlayStation 3 era. I remember going into a GameStop and thinking, oh my goodness, this game looks so phenomenal. I'd always wanted to play them on the PlayStation 2, so as soon as I got a PlayStation 3, I got several Ratchet and Clank games. I had a blast playing them, and then I just kind of fell off for a while, probably because there weren't a whole lot of games to play. They hadn't been making a lot of games in the series. So this one really rekindled my love for the franchise and helped me remember why I loved it so much. It's kind of like a pseudo remake of the original, but it's more like a remake of the movie, which was a retelling of the original game. So it's pretty much a remake of the original, but with a lot of other new upgrades and everything, and it just really works. It's a phenomenal introduction to the series. If you are new to Ratchet and Clank, you have Rift Apart on the PlayStation 5, but if you go play the PlayStation 4 one from 2016, you will experience Ratchet and Clank probably at its peak. This game is so much fun, so much so that I even went through a second playthrough immediately after finishing it to get the Platinum Trophy. It was that compelling and that much fun. I did not want it to end, so I played it all over again. So it's going to be sitting here at number 10. Number 9 is going to be Inside. This game is absolutely out of this world crazy in every sense of the word, excuse me. This is one of the most insane worlds that I've ever seen in like a puzzle platforming game. These are the same creators of Limbo. This is Playdead Studios. So if you played Limbo, you can kind of know what to expect here with Inside. You're gonna have a really creepy game, lots of weird themes and some great tight platforming and puzzle solving, but this really kicks it up a notch with its storytelling. Limbo has some loose storytelling. You see some elements throughout the game, and I think that they really capitalized on what they established as a base for Limbo and made it into this really compelling game that really just drives you forward the more you play it. You don't have any like real voice lines or anything telling you what's going on in the game. You have to infer everything from exploring the world. There are little secrets to find here and there, but also just watching the background and the characters that pursue you and everything. It's just a really special experience, and again, it's really hard to quantify or explain what's fantastic about it, because it is just like a 2.5D puzzle platformer that you're going through, and you try and get to the very end, and there's a crazy ending that I won't even talk about here because it's hard to just getting into the logistics of that would be insane. But this game is one of those that really leaves an impact in a big way that even if you're not super paying attention, you'll get to the end and go, what did I just play? What was that phenomenal experience that I just had? This game got countless 10 out of 10s, and I 100% agree. Inside is going to be here on this list. Number 8 is going to be Resident Evil 2. I really love the Resident Evil franchise. It's one of my favorites of all time. I think Capcom created something really beautiful and brilliant. And the older games are a little bit hard to go back to. They're still phenomenal. I still love playing them. I still love emulating the PlayStation, the PlayStation versions and everything, the really old ones. But I hadn't played Resident Evil 2 in a very long time because the tank controls have not aged the best in any respect. And playing through like even Resident Evil 1 remake for the GameCube and then the HD version later on for modern consoles, it's just a little bit hard to deal with the tank controls if you're more used to the more modern conventions, especially the later games in the Resident Evil franchise itself. So getting a full-on remake of Resident Evil 2, arguably one of the best in the franchise or some people's very favorite in a lot of respects, was a really cool idea. It was one of those that was met with a lot of trepidation because it's like, how do you remake this game with a third-person over-the-shoulder perspective when the tank controls were part of what made the game so scary and isolating in the beginning? And they really knocked it out of the park. This is probably one of the best remakes ever, if it's not the best remake of all time. They really killed it. They implemented everything that works from the franchise in terms of the scare factor. They implement like the isolation really well. The new aiming system for this remake was phenomenal. They didn't take what was like in Resident Evil 4, Resident Evil 5 with like really precision aiming. They instead made it so that your camera sways, and if you're not holding still, your reticle gets a little bit bigger and it's harder to hit your shots. Zombies are more intelligent in this game. The atmosphere is terrifying. The upgraded visuals do a lot for horror. It's a really phenomenal remake in every single respect. I love this game. On my like best Resident Evil games of all time, this is number 2 for me, right behind the original Resident Evil 4 and just above the Resident Evil 4 remake. That's how high it ends up on this list. Number 7 is going to be Control. Now, I wasn't a huge fan of Remedy. I'd never played their older games. I didn't play like the Max Payne series. I remember my brother playing it. I watched him play, I think the original one, or it was either the first one or the second one, thinking this game is crazy and weird, and I really liked the idea of it, but it wasn't, and I never played like Alan Wake until much later on after I tried Control. When this game came to PlayStation Plus, I had seen a review recently on YouTube, and I really loved what the game was putting down, and then all of a sudden it was free. I'm like, okay, I gotta try this out. And I had one of the most interesting experiences I've probably ever had playing a video game. This game is insane. From start to finish, it's bonkers, it's crazy, you won't know what's going on half the time. You'll think you do, you think you have an idea of what's happening and where this is going, and then all of a sudden they'll throw you a not even a curveball, they'll throw you a knuckleball that's going absolutely insane and then spins and jumps around behind you. That's how crazy this game is. There are twists and turns and nonsensical nonsense all the time, and it comes together to create this beautiful, chaotic package that's just a joy to play. Now, I'll get into some more specifics because that was just nonsense what I just said there. The gunplay is phenomenal. The different variants of the weapons that you can use are really fantastic. The like movement mechanics, being able to float around inside the Bureau of Control is really, really, really great. The enemy varietals are really fantastic. They're really hard to take down in a lot of instances. The story itself is bonkers, but it has a through line that you can follow, and it really connects into the wider Remedy universe in a really major way. It's really impressive. It makes me want to play all the Remedy experiences, and that's what ultimately led me to play Alan Wake. So it's going to be here on this list. Number 6 is going to be Ghost of Tsushima. This is going to be the director's cut specifically, since the expansion is so phenomenal. I played this one on both the PlayStation 4 and the PlayStation 5, but I feel like it's more synonymous with the PlayStation 4 generation, so I want it to be on this list specifically. This is Sucker Punch coming back with a bang after formerly making like the Infamous series and then kind of taking a hiatus after Second Son. It was like, well, I wonder what Sucker Punch is doing, if they're doing anything at all, and they come out swinging with Ghost of Tsushima, a brand new IP that hits hard from the beginning. This game is out of this world good, from the different combat styles that you can use, to the ghost weapons, to this gorgeous, one of the most gorgeous worlds I've ever explored in video gaming, to the traversal, to the story that's so compelling and will capture every like bit of your attention here. This game has everything that you could possibly hope for. If you like the exploration of open worlds, this one will knock it out of the park for you. If you like little side quests and finding little pieces of lore here and there, it's everywhere. You have little side quests to do all the time. If you like beefy side quests that feed into the main story, you've got those in spades. If you like a really solid main story with phenomenal villains and great tension, this game is it. Ghost of Tsushima is one of those all-time greats, one of those incredibly special games. When I perused Metacritic, this was so low on the list, I could not believe it was like at the 200 range in terms of scores on Metacritic. That's how criminally, like, that's insane. That's a criminal score for me, because this game is absolutely one of the GOATs on the PlayStation 4. It's out of this world good, and if you haven't played it, go check it out on the PlayStation 4 or the PlayStation 5. Number 5 is going to be Sekiro: Shadows Die Twice. I really love From Software games. I could have easily put Dark Souls 3 on this list because that game is phenomenal. But Sekiro is one of those that's so special because it kind of ditches the whole Souls formula in a lot of ways. You have a lot of the same elements like collecting souls and upgrading your character and everything. But instead of having a customizable character, it's stagnant. You have one weapon, you have tools to use, and you don't customize your character at all. This is a story told about this character that you're playing as. And it's beautiful. For foregoing all the conventions of every other Souls game that came before it, was the best thing that could have happened for the series. They did such a phenomenal job, so to the point that most people don't even consider this a Soulsborne game. They consider it like a very secondary thing. I'm not going to get into the weeds on that one, but this one is so much fun. It is brutally difficult, probably the hardest in the franchise. Maybe Bloodborne is harder. It's hard to say specifically. The combat is very difficult and tricky to get down. Once you figure it out, it's basically like a rhythm mini game, but with so many mix-ups and so many things that you can do that it becomes really difficult. I got to the end of this game beating all the side bosses, all the extra content, doing the Demon of Hatred, which is one of the most difficult things I have ever done, and still struggling with the final boss. I'd played the heck out of this game, and I still had so much trouble. That's how fantastically difficult this game is. There's so many branching paths you can do, so many alternate bosses you can have if you do different things. This game is full of content and is so good. Number 4 is going to be The Last of Us Part 2. I really love the original Last of Us. It's my favorite PlayStation 3 game, if you want to check out that list after this video. I love The Last of Us, and The Last of Us Part 2 did not disappoint me in any regard. I know there were tons of leaks beforehand. People were really upset. I will spoil right now, if you have not played this game, this is your chance to duck out or skip ahead, so I'm going to do tiny spoilers here. Joel dies at the beginning of The Last of Us Part 2. And people were really mad about that because they wanted to play as him. All the the footage prior to the game launching showed players utilizing Joel again. And you don't get to play as him for very long. And once he's dead, he's gone. You get to experience flashbacks with Ellie. You're playing as her on this revenge tour, and you get all this insight from their relationship post The Last of Us. It's a really gorgeously haunting game, and what makes it such a good sequel, most sequels for me don't do a whole lot to differentiate themselves from the original, and in a lot of ways The Last of Us Part 2 does feel similar. The combat is very samey. It feels like the stealth mechanics haven't improved all that much. There are new things you can do, like crawling in the grass and everything, setting up traps. There are nuances to the battle system and everything, but it is more or less a lot more of the same. What they did the best in this game was innovating on the storytelling. The story in Last of Us Part 1 is one of the best stories ever told in video gaming. I will hold to that forever. But The Last of Us Part 2 evolves that even further. Most people didn't like the idea of Ellie going on this revenge story because it seemed so pointless and so stupid. And for half of the game, another little spoiler here, if you want to skip ahead again, for half the game you play as Abby, Joel's killer, which is insane for most people. People did not want to play as Abby because they hated her. You are going against her. We love Ellie and Joel. Why would we want to play as Abby? And that's the whole point of the game. The whole point is that both of these people are trapped in this cyclical revenge cycle that they cannot break because they're so blinded by hatred. They're so blinded by everything that they're willing to risk and lose everything for their own revenge. And both of the characters have to evolve through the story to recognize what's going on and to see all the loss around them. It's utterly gorgeous and, again, haunting. And the way that they improved, like, death animations in this game is so grotesque and so hard to sit through that it makes killing every person, like human being in this game, have so much weight to it. I'm going to talk about this game at length at some other point because I could fill this whole video with this. But Last of Us Part 2 is a really special game, and if you wrote it off because people were so critical of it before it launched, you are missing out on one of the best experiences in gaming. Number 3 is going to be Bloodborne. If there's a game I love more than Sekiro, it is Bloodborne. This is the pinnacle of From Software in my opinion. They have not done something better. I think Elden Ring is out of this world phenomenal. I think Sekiro is out of this world phenomenal. Dark Souls 3, the original Dark Souls. I even love Demon Souls. Dark Souls 2 is pretty good. I love From Software games, but nothing has topped Bloodborne for me because of how fast and frenetic it is. This is a game that emphasizes action first. I don't like shielding. I don't like blocking. I don't like intense strategy in terms of like using magic and stuff. I like hitting things with my melee weapon, and I love dodging. And this game does both of those things incredibly well. There is so much fun to be had in Bloodborne, but it's not that straightforward either. There is a counter system where you have a gun, which is also really cool. Instead of parrying, you use a gun to parry, and the windows are very tight. The combat is incredibly intense, and because you have such an emphasis on action, you don't have like a flask like the other games in like the Dark Souls or Elden Ring or anything like that. You have blood vials that you can pick up from dead bodies. You can carry up to 20 of those, or even more if you have certain things equipped. So you have like a almost unlimited supply of blood vials if you're farming the right enemies and everything while you go toward your path, because the game wants you to have quick access to healing so you can get right back into the action. And I just love that about Bloodborne. Pair that with probably the best bosses in the entire like Soulsborne franchise, and this game is just, oh, it's so much fun. And the old Hunters DLC is some of the hardest I've ever played. The hardest bosses in any video game ever. This game is a 10 out of 10. Please give us a PlayStation 5 port. Please. Upgraded visuals, frame rate, and everything. I would love that. Number 2 is going to be Red Dead Redemption 2. This is another one of those that is one of the best sequels because of how much it innovates on the storyline. Now this game, like The Last of Us Part 2, has a lot to do with a lot of the same kind of combat, same kind of traversal. What really stands out is the incredibly intimate story that it tells as Arthur Morgan. This is one of those characters that you become endeared to from early on in the game, and it becomes one of your favorite people ever. This story is so phenomenal that my wife got me this game because she saw it at her friend's house. It looked so gorgeous. I think it's probably the best looking game ever made, even to this day. Just how much visual detail and everything that they implement into this game. I won't touch on that too much, but it is out of this world good. My wife saw my friend playing it at his house and thought it looked phenomenal. She knew I wanted it, and after seeing it, she's like, okay, this game looks really cool. She bought it for me. And then she saw me start to play it and was recognizing the story that was taking place. And we sat down and probably played 60 hours together of her watching me play throughout this entire story, doing the side quests and everything, because it was that captivating. My wife's not a big video game fan. She doesn't play games. She doesn't really typically love video games in general. So sitting down with me for 60 hours of gameplay to experience this story with me is really cool. That should tell you how phenomenal this story is. I don't know what else to say here. Arthur Morgan's one of the coolest characters ever. I love Red Dead 2. It really gives so much context to the original game, which is also a 10 out of 10 game. This is one of the best sequels ever made. But number 1 is going to be God of War 2018. I recently did a review on this. I gave it an incredibly glowing review. Obviously, if it's going to be the top of my PlayStation 4 list, it must be really good. This game does everything that a reboot or revitalization of a franchise should. This game elevates Kratos' character, turns him into something fresh and new, and makes a huge impact with the storytelling. As you can tell, this generation is a generation of storytelling or incredibly tight game mechanics. This game has one of the best stories I've ever experienced because it's really personal to me, especially because I became a dad about the same time that this game came out, which was really cool. Kratos as a dad much later on past the Greek mythology trilogy is a really weird thing to start off with. People did not expect it, myself included. But once we got into it and started to see what they were putting down here and putting together, we instantly fell in love with Kratos and his new character, because it is so beautiful to watch him evolve. This bloodthirsty, revenge-filled hatred demon turn into a loving dad. It's insane, and the fact that it works is a testament to how phenomenal Sony Santa Monica are at making this game. Oh my goodness. If you want to hear my full thoughts, go check out my review, because again, I could fill this video with that alone. That's going to be my #1 game on the PlayStation 4. Again, let me know in the comments section down below what your personal top 15 or top 10 are. I would love to hear from you. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you on the next one.